the way Go came about is that I went to a talk at Google, and it was the Google representative for the ANSI standard for C++. And he'd just come back from a standards meeting and described the new stuff. And the new stuff, in my opinion, was bigger than the language, right? And it was, I didn't understand most of it. It was forms of pointers that meant some other thing besides pointer. It's the data, but it had notions on the data or something. I tell you, I didn't understand it. And it goes on and on and on. And it was an hour talk that was dense on just the improvements, so-called improvements to C++. And some of my friends, like Griesemer and Pike, were complaining about in Google, there's one repository of source, and you can reference it by library from any source that you go in. So you can write a 10-line program and have a 5 million line compilation on your hands, right? And more than that, that some of these things, like the simplest libc or something like that, library, will be loaded and examined hundreds of thousands of times.
Wow.
So you'd have gigalines of codes coming in on every compilation. Now, a lot of that was attacked and fixed, where they would keep track. The compiler would keep track of what was seen and just not open it or look at it. Right? It was like a cache version of, don't look at this. You've already seen it. And for all the libraries that have these so-called if-defs at the beginning to keep it from being done twice, but it would call on them hundreds of thousands. I mean, the staggering. And then they had a big chunk of the Google Data Center. They had hundreds of CPUs doing a compilation for you, right? And then now things just got worse and worse and worse, and those were getting large. You'd wait 15 minutes with 100 computers, compiling a 10-line program, and so that was Rob's big. But Rob was much more into Google software than I was. And that was Rob's big. That it was just horribly complex as it was, and so the three of us got in an office and said, what are we going to do about it? I said, let's write a language. So we wrote a language, and that was it. And it was a very good combination of Rob understood the problems at Google. I'd had language and compilations history, and Griesemer was a Swiss jack of all languages. He knew every piece of every language theoretically, in existence. It was just a good combination. And he'd say, oh, that's like, some obscure language, and you have to run off and try to find a manual for it and see what it was like. And so we built this language with the idea that we all had to agree on features, that no feature went in because I want that feature. That's not good enough. And it came out nice and clean. And then I left. It was basically a very good language when I left, but it was unknown and unused. And then it went open source, and a huge open source community picked it up and loved it and went through it. And then at Google, again after I left, some of the follow-on guys wrote a set of libraries that are just great. They're just magnificent. And now I write in Go almost exclusively, and almost exclusively I use nothing but the standard libraries for anything. It's simple. Anybody can learn it in an hour. There's websites that, and by the end you think you know it. You then may have to go back to reference manuals to get it exact. But and there's a window that comes up, which is your version of a terminal with CL running, and you type it, and it's fast enough that you type a program, and as you're typing it, it's running it and gives you the answer.